Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. RI Elder Info's Friday Friends. It's a beautiful day out today. I am Deb Burton. I am the founder and creator of RI Elder Info. For those of you who might just be watching for the first time, RI Elder Info is the most comprehensive resource for seniors, caregivers, and professionals. It can be translated into just about every language spoken in Rhode Island, provides information on federal, state, and local resources in an easy to understand way. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are dependent on our supporters, our sponsors, and our generous donors to be able to keep bringing information to you. Our sponsor for today's Friday Friends is the Visit Kit. Thank you very much.
Family and friends of people with dementia, we need your insight. We're introducing Visit, an activity kit and an app that helps you and your loved one have the most positive interactions. Take our survey at thevisitkit.com and help us deliver the very best solution. Thank you.
Thank you to the Visit Kit. So today's guest is Cynthia Andreola from the Brain Injury Association of Rhode Island. She's going to tell us what they're doing over there. Welcome, Cynthia.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Great. It is a gorgeous day.
Yes, we love these late summer, early autumn days where the sun is shining and the leaves are changing. It's awesome.
And I really appreciate the invitation because the Brain Injury Association of Rhode Island is sort of a well-kept secret, and we do not want to be a secret. We want people to know we're out there and be aware of the resources we can provide.
Yes, so please, it is a well-kept secret, and we're trying to break that secret and make it public knowledge. Tell us about the Brain Injury Association and what you do.
So what we do is provide information, education, and connect people with the supports and services they need after they have had a brain injury. We also do brain injury prevention, and specifically for the senior population, we try to do a lot of fall prevention because that is the leading cause of a brain injury for a senior citizen. We try to get out into the community and educate people on concussion prevention. We've just run a large program with the school systems and with the health department. And it's a return to play, return to school prevention for concussions, baseline testing, teaching the school nurses and the athletic coaches. So we just try to be out there and serve every group within the state, every age group, because brain injury is a lot more common than the average person thinks about. It encompasses folks who have a stroke, folks who have a brain bleed, an aneurysm, and then there's the traumatic brain injuries, which are things like accidents, concussions, falls. And so everyone knows someone who has dealt with a brain injury. The concussion piece immediately encompasses lots of folks. And they say that about 3.2 million Americans suffer a traumatic brain injury every year. So that's one every 23 seconds. And in Rhode Island, about 12,000 Rhode Islanders have reported some sort of brain injury within the last year, and that's only through the folks who end up in the ER. So there's lots of folks who aren't even aware that, that fall should be checked out, that knock on the head.
I think you bring up a really good point, because a lot of times, the folks that I talk to, they think about traumatic brain injury as, the bicyclist without the helmet on, or the car accident, or sometimes the fall down the stairs. But an injury to your brain can really be not necessarily something. Your brain can become injured without something really appearing so catastrophic as, like some gaping head wound kind of thing. When someone has a brain bleed or a stroke, Can you talk about whether or not your brain is able to heal, or how do you recover from that kind of thing when your brain is injured? Is recovery possible? What does that
So
look like?
there are levels of recovery, and we are not clinicians. What we really do is provide the information, and we have a resource library, and that's one of the things that is most beneficial to the residents in our state, is that we can connect folks when they get out of rehab or leave the hospital, and connect them. Maybe they need speech therapy.
Mhm.
Maybe they need an occupational therapist, a support group. So in terms of the level of recovery, it is definitely going to vary tremendously. The brain takes a while to heal. We do know that people have had recoveries beyond the expectations of even the professionals, and I can speak of that personally. My childhood best friend sadly was hit on his bicycle and left for dead a number of years ago.
Oh God.
And they did not expect him to survive, let alone have a complete recovery. And he is several years out after having to relearn pretty much every basic skill. He now has run several marathons. He walks with a cane, which amuses me, but running is actually an easier skill for your brain to process because it's more repetitive than walking.
Wow.
He has learned to ski again, obviously with modifications. He's back working as an attorney. So again, we try to encourage people to recognize that the process of healing does not have a timetable. And the one thing that is probably very typical is that whatever time it takes is longer and slower than anyone wants.
I
Because again, people are frightened, people are anxious, and it's hard to be patient when you've seen your life kind of turned upside down. And that's one of the benefits of a nonprofit such as ours, is we can connect people. We have support groups, and right now through COVID, we have gone online with those support groups, but normally we have them throughout the state, and hopefully we will have those live support groups again in the future. But we are finding a real benefit to the virtual ones because there are folks who had no ability to get to the meetings before. So now they don't have to leave the comfort of their own home. And a lot of friendships are made that way, and a lot of resources are obtained. We run a educational conference every year, and we are hoping in the future to do a series of them now that we're seeing how well Zoom platforms and webinars work. We're hoping to be able to offer a lot more information to our folks in addition to those live educational programs. And if they go to our website, they will get information on our latest brain injury conference, and for a nominal fee, they can get access to some phenomenal speakers that we had. So we really are very heavy on the educational component, both as a prevention tool and as a resource on what happens next, and really connecting people with the services they need, the supports they need. So not only are we serving the brain injury survivors, but also their family members and their caretakers. And so we are made up of members who encompass all of those groups. So we have professionals who are part of our membership. As part of the educational conference, we did CEU credits for psychologists and nurses and all of the professionals that are involved with this really worthwhile work.
So, Cynthia, what tips could you give? Say, for instance, somebody, their spouse just had a stroke, and they're noticing that their personality isn't the same as they were before the stroke. What kind of tips could you give to those caregivers on how to kind of adjust to this new normal until the brain has time to heal?
So we have a resource manager, and his job is answering questions, connecting people to services. He will actually meet with families in person pre-COVID, hopefully post-COVID. And in the meantime, he's doing it over different video platforms and phone calls and trying to explain to the families exactly what is realistic expectations. Again, there is not a one size fits all. He is actually a brain injury survivor himself, so he has an insight that the rest of us really can't provide. I know that sometime this week he was going to speak with a family who actually is expecting their survivor to just move on, go back to work, and let's just pretend this never happened. And so he's trying to explain to them what is more of a realistic expectation and maybe connect them with other family members and caregivers further down in the process so that they get a better understanding. One of the issues that our survivors encounter is it is not a visible injury in most cases. So if you see someone in a wheelchair or you see someone using a cane, which sometimes is the case, but a lot of our folks from the outside look very similar to how they did before their injury. And so I think that for most of us, it's just a disconnect. We expect to be able to visualize when someone's got a major injury. And so that's part of our education component, to get out there and explain how common this is. And we've even discovered that we need to educate our police about this because they may be encountering someone that is not processing what they're telling them. So they're not being belligerent. They're not, ignoring the instructions they're getting. Their brain may just not be able to process the information in the way the police are expecting. And they recently shared with me a video which showed people with brain injuries trying to take a sobriety test and walk a straight line, and they had nothing to drink at all, but they failed the test just because of the results of their brain injury. So that can be really a traumatic incident for that survivor, to have the police think that they're inebriated or they're being difficult.
Are brain injuries, or the types of brain injuries, are they kind of age related? So if you're younger, you're more likely to have, I don't know, fallen during rock climbing, or if you're older, more likely for it to be a stroke.
I think it's across the lines. Certainly, young people are involved in riskier behaviors and involved in sports at a higher level. And so a lot of times those are the type of injuries we hear about and learn about. But I recently found out that a 18-year-old that I encounter in my everyday life, perky, happy, just a delightful young girl. And I knew she had been sick this summer, and I asked her what had happened, and she had a brain bleed.
Wow.
Something you would never expect from,
Yeah.
An 18-year-old, this teenager who just going about her life. And fortunately, her family were attuned enough to the headache she was having being beyond what was normal. And they really pushed the doctor to investigate further. But a lot of families would just it wouldn't even occur to them that the headaches were more than the stress to a teenager right now of living in this environment and having everything in their lives disrupted. And she ended up in Rhode Island Hospital for over a week, had major surgery. And interestingly, she was not aware that I worked for the Brain Injury Association of Rhode Island, and her family was not given any information about us at discharge. And that's
Oh,
something we're working really hard to make sure that the physicians and that the hospitals are letting people know. So you had mentioned what are some of the things people should do
yep.
when the brain injury has occurred. So obviously it's a traumatic time, not just from a physical standpoint, but in terms of making all those arrangements for when the folks come home, for the additional services that they will need. And so reaching out to us as soon as you possibly can, even if it's an email in the middle of the night when you think about it, someone will get back to you. And there are steps to take in terms of knowing to immediately apply for disability. Because again, that's a step that easily can be forgotten in all the turmoil. The family is very focused on survival and recovery, but that's something that will have a long-term outcome if they don't follow the proper steps. And again, just getting them connected with services. So we can provide a family with contractors who can put in grab bars in the shower, in the bathroom. So some of those things that, will enhance the everyday life of the survivor and the family. And so there's really soup to nuts, but people have brain injuries every single day that they're not even aware of, that bang on the head. And sadly, a lot of concussions go undiagnosed and people don't take them as seriously as they should. And maybe they're fine after the first hit. But if it happens several times, then the long-term effects are going to be more serious and more difficult to be able to recover from. And that's why we do this big press specifically with high school athletes, because a lot of the students, they don't want to share what happened because they don't want to be taken out of the game. And so they really need to understand the long-term ramifications and the rest their brains need. And their teachers and their guidance counselors and their coaches need to understand why that's important and how the modifications that need to be made just short term, but to ensure that long term there are no health ramifications. And for seniors, we just want to make certain that they know that there are steps they can take and there are supports out there, and to not be frightened, because often when we get frightened, we get paralyzed and we just don't take the steps we need to improve our living situation.
I think you make a really interesting point. When we think about the teenage athletes and they don't want to report that maybe that hit was a little harder than people realized, or that they did become injured, because they don't want to be taken out of the game. And I think that analogy is very similar for our older adults. They don't want to acknowledge that maybe there had been a fall and they banged their head, because there's a real fear of a loss of independence. And so they don't
Absolutely.
get the treatment that they need. And that's a huge issue. And you also mentioned about the ability to refer out for grab bars and ramps and those kinds of things. For those of you who've watched Friday Friends from the beginning, my very first speaker was Bill Flynn from the Senior Agenda Coalition. And one of the things that we're all strongly advocating for is press at the State House to maintain the home modification grant funding. The home modification grant funding has certain very generous income guidelines that can actually help cover some of the cost of those grab bars and ramps and home modifications that allow people to remain independent. But it's a tough budget year, so it's really important that people reach out to their legislatures and let them know that the home modification grant is making a difference in people's lives. You were saying, family and the individual are really focused on surviving, and that's paramount. That's job one. But it's those other pieces that have critical time frames, like you were saying, when to apply for a disability, and okay, they've survived in the hospital, maybe they're going to go to a rehab unit, but how do you get them through the door of the house? And those are all things, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Brain Injury Association is able to really help families and individuals navigate.
Absolutely. So navigation is a great term to explain what we do. And the support groups, I cannot emphasize enough how important they are, because you feel like you're alone. No matter what people tell you, it's hard to get beyond the situation at hand. And just to know that somebody else has gone through it, that someone else is navigating it at the same time. And also the inspiration of seeing folks like Richard in our office, who now works and is able to help others, can be really supportive and inspirational, because again, recovery is not just physical. Recovery, there is the component of not losing hope in remaining positive. Certainly there are things that positivity cannot change, but again, being positive is never a negative thing. It even if it just helps put a smile on your face and give you a little bit more hope. But our support groups provide access to information that sometimes we aren't even aware of. And Richard will lead a support group and come in and tell us, gee, I learned something new. And just now, I did not know the state had that grant for making those home modifications. So it really, we all have to interconnect. We all have to teach each other about these services and about the opportunities out there. And as you're saying, it is a really challenging budget cycle at the state level, and it's a really challenging time for small nonprofits. We are
Amen.
all just hanging by our fingernails because in our case, our membership numbers are down. Our major fundraisers have all had to be canceled. We were doing a bowling event. Obviously, that couldn't take place. We had to modify our educational conference to online, and while it provided a lot of the same services, it prevented us from raising funds in ways we typically do. Our largest fundraiser of the year is our annual gala. And it's a really, really exciting event. We have chefs come in and do tastings, and it's just a fun evening out. Well, we've gone from plan A to plan B to plan C, and we are now at the plan where this is going to be a virtual gala. And so what we'd encourage folks to do is look up what we're planning to do. It's going to be really fun. We're going to have the chefs sending food to your home, wine to your home. We're going to have the chefs speaking online to share some thoughts. We're going to go out to some vineyards and educate people on wine and kind of be a sneak peek behind winemaking in a way they've never seen before. So we're trying to modify, still make it a really fun and educational event, not only because we want to connect people, but it's a lifeline to keep our doors open. We are doing a trivia event in October, on October 15th. It's Prove You're a Brainiac. It's teams of 4 who sign up. It will be a virtual trivia event. It promises to be really fun. We're going to have a professional host in there who will provide the questions and just make it a really super event. And it's $200 a team. There will be prizes for not only the winning team, but also for the team who comes up with the most creative team name. And there'll be opportunities to learn a little bit more about the Brain Injury Association, but mostly it's just a fun event, and people will be set up in virtual rooms with their teams. We're going to send out recipes for some cocktails, make it kind of a fun way that people who aren't able to see each other in person can kind of have an evening out while doing good by providing some funds for us.
That just sounds awesome. The idea of having a chef send the food to your house, the sneak peek behind the vineyards, like your gala, that sounds awesome. Even for your trivia fundraiser, 200 for a team of 4, that's $50 a person. One thing that COVID has caused to happen is there's really not a lot of opportunity to go out and be entertained and have a good time. And $50, if you went out for, you and your partner to dinner at a restaurant, and I'm not taking away from restaurants during the time of COVID, please visit our restaurants. But say you were going out to a festival, one of our festivals that have been canceled, $50 to spend $100 for a couple. Yeah, like you would do that, and it wouldn't, you wouldn't think twice about it. And here is an opportunity where for many people, we're facing social isolation and loneliness, where you can engage, you can have fun, and you can support an organization that is giving back to the community and is really, the Brain Injury Association really is making a difference in people's lives, the people who have encountered the brain injury, as well as their family and the caregivers, and really helping them to adjust. And if you want to send me the support group information, I'll be happy to put that on the RA Elder Info calendar of events so that people will be able to find that. RA Elder Info, we're all about getting information out to the people that need it. People can always find more information on raelderinfo.com, but we're really, I understand completely. We're a nonprofit too, and you hold on and you're grateful to your sponsors and your funders, and we're holding on because, the work that the Brain Injury Association is doing, the work that RA Elder Info is doing, it is so critically important to people in the community. So yeah, you've got your trivia event, you've got your gala. If people wanted to support you in other ways, what are other opportunities that they might be able to support the Brain Injury Association and the work that you're doing?
So we always love to have volunteers. Right now, we're limited in having them come into the office, but if someone is interested, we can provide them with some tasks that they can do at home, some mailings for us, getting information out to people, even writing letters to the State House about funding. The equality is not the same for brain injuries as a lot of other types of diseases that occur. And so that's one of the things we're always trying to educate them at the State House and let them better understand. And we actually had grant money that we used to receive through the state that for a number of reasons has been reallocated. And so if people want to help us by writing letters to get that money put back into the programs that it originally served, that would be wonderfully beneficial, just to educate your reps, let them know what's going on. We can give you some of that information and reaching out with a phone call or a letter is really beneficial. They can partner up with folks who maybe are very isolated, and that phone call to them might be a lifeline at this point, because again, this is a really isolating time for all of us, but for people with brain injuries, it can be particularly isolating. So the more we can pair people up, partner them, make friendships, we love to connect people. We really are all about connection at the agency, and give us a call. I see the phone number is scrolling at the bottom of the screen, and we will find ways to get you involved. I know the resource library is always updating their information and sending out packets. So we have people put the packets together and get the mailings out. So we definitely can put people to work. And then once we go back to some live events, we certainly welcome people when we've done events like a run or a walkathon. Need loads of people to help out when we go back to hopefully having that bowling event, just coordinating the day of the event. So, and there are events that are fun in addition to making a difference. And, that's what the creativity of the nonprofit world requires. Because if it's not fun, no one's going to want to really do it.
Yep.
And we can't just rely on the folks who are directly affected by the various causes out there, because they would get run down. So we really count on folks that just have time and an inclination to give back. And I'm sure you've shared with your folks the mental health and the physical health benefits of volunteering. There is lots
Absolutely.
of research on how you often get more back than you give. And I don't think that's why people volunteer, but it is nice to know that beyond being altruistic, it can have benefits for volunteers.
Yes, volunteering absolutely does give back 100%. Yes. Yeah, Cynthia, I really appreciate you coming on today. And I have to say, as an information and resource provider myself, your resource library at the Brain Injury Association is extraordinary. You have a tremendous amount of information there that can help individuals. And I'm grateful that you are also a resource for me as well. So again, I thank you very much for coming on today, and I will be happy to share more information about the Brain Injury Association of Rhode Island.
And I'd love to just give one final little shout out. So we do have some very generous corporate partners, and just recently, Rob Levine and Associates has made an offer to provide some Thanksgiving baskets to brain injury survivors and caretakers that may have some challenges being able to provide a nice Thanksgiving meal this year. So we have a number of baskets that are still available. So if someone who is a brain injury survivor or someone who's caretaking someone who has that need, please reach out to our office sooner rather than later, because we want to make sure they're distributed to everyone who needs them. And we're hoping to get everything put in place very quickly to make sure that that generous offer doesn't go to waste, because they've done it for a few years and they love meeting our population and helping them. The delivery will be contactless, but they will send their associates out, and Rob goes out and he'll, leave it on the front porch. We'll give information exactly, letting people know when to expect it, and, they'll ring the bell or something. So those are the fun kinds of partnerships that can be created. And if anyone out there knows of a business looking to have some sort of connection, we definitely appreciate any of those partnerships.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity, and everyone stay safe and, enjoy this gorgeous day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in our Friday Friends. It wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. Thank you to the Visit Kit. I hope everyone is going to tune in on Thursday right here on Facebook for the Virtual Senior Resource Fair. It's going to be amazing. Our speakers that day are more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. So, watch with your questions, be prepared. You're going to get some resources and information that you definitely need, or those that you love and care about will need. So you definitely want to tune in. And of course, I'll be back here again on Friday for Friday Friends. Again, thank you to our sponsor, the Visit Kit, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. See you Thursday.
Family and friends of people with dementia, we need your insight. We're introducing Visit, an activity kit and an app that helps you and your loved one have the most positive interactions. Take our survey at thevisitkit.com and help us deliver the very best solution. Thank you.